Hello and welcome to this episode of the Well Off Podcast. I had an opportunity to interview Maria Esposito from Elite Property Investments, and we actually had a really good conversation about the opportunities that exist in St. Catharines. So that's a market that's really booming, and I think that there are a lot of opportunities there. I know you guys probably always hear me talking about Hamilton, but I do see a lot of value in St. Catharines because the prices are still really low there, even lower than Hamilton. So you can get a pretty decent property like in the 300,000-400,000 range, and you're able to find good tenants that are paying good money to rent. So we talked about like some of the different areas of St. Catharines, what you can find in say the north end, what strategies would work there versus the south or the downtown area. We talked about areas for student rentals. We discussed different economic factors, the GO train and such in St. Catharines. So a lot of good things there. I hope you'll enjoy the episode. And just a reminder, if you know anyone who's looking to invest, I'd love to help them. If they're getting into their first, second, third property, I'm really looking for people that are still beginners and that they're people that I can really provide a lot of value to. So keep me in mind with your friends and family. I'd love to help them, and enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Well Off Podcast, where the goal is to motivate, inspire, and share success principles. Today I'm here with Maria Esposito from Elite Property Investments. This is actually, I met Maria a little while ago. We've had an opportunity to chat a couple times. So I'll just give you a brief explanation or kind of bio about Maria. She used to have a government job, and she felt very unfulfilled at the time. So she left in 2015, kind of restarted, refocused, and she worked a lot on her personal development, actually invested a good sum of her fortune on that part. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. And she also decided to start a real estate investment and personal development training company. So she founded that with her partner, Carlo. And she's been working there. She's the CEO. She's giving everything into growing this company and this organization. And her focus is on creating off-market opportunities, specifically in the multi-unit and commercial space. So welcome to the show, Maria.
Well, thank you, George, for having me here.
You're welcome. Maria's a little bit nervous. Yeah, so what I like to do to start is to talk a little bit about your childhood. So if you want to kind of tell me where you grew up, which I know, but maybe not everyone else does, and tell me what you remember from your childhood.
I guess to start out, my background is Italian. So I grew up in the city of St. Catharines in a very traditional Italian household. My parents were both middle class, working. My dad has always been in trades. I like to consider him jack of all trades, but he's a certified painter and has been doing that for many, many years. Mm-hmm. And my mother was in the banking industry and now has, for the past, many years, has been in retail. So, at this point, so growing up, in an Italian household, it was very, work hard, save your money, and, do what everybody else is doing. So that was kind of the big learnings that I got growing up. However, as a child, I was a very curious little girl. So I grew up always getting into, I guess you could say, a little bit of trouble and just having that curiosity with life and trying different things. Which led me to basically leave home at 14 years old. And from that point, I won't go into details, but I kind of had to fend for myself. So I guess you could say my teenage years were typical teenage years where I had to work for a living, support myself, put myself through school, and support myself. So that's kind of in a nutshell my childhood growing up, with very strong ties and Italian community and having that background and kind of almost as if resisting the things that I learned and the things that I was noticing with the world and how it was changing. And that's what kind of guided me to the life and where I live today, and how I live today, and, being a full-time entrepreneur and an investor myself with my partner and growing a business of success and, service and truly just getting out there and servicing the St. Catharines community
Mhm.
as much as we can.
Great. So I have a question for you. How Italian are you from 1 to 10?
How Italian? Oh, that's a good question. I would consider myself more mangiac, I guess you would say.
Okay.
You know, I like the traditions of the Italian culture. However, I would say I do follow some of the traditions, but I kind of add a little twist of Maria into that, where need being, especially in terms of being a person in the personal development area. You know, the mindset focus is a little bit different than, you know, than I guess you could say. So I would say maybe a 7.
A 7.
A 7
That's
out of
higher
10.
than I thought when you said you're a munja cake.
Yeah, well, there's still quite a bit of Italian.
Did you
in
do your
me.
tomatoes?
That's usually Labor Day weekend. So within the next month,
Oh, in
yes,
St. Catharines,
we
it's
will
Labor
be doing
Day.
tomato. Yeah, usually we do it Labor Day, but it depends on the weather hasn't been the greatest for tomatoes. So, but within the next month, yes, we will be doing.
That's
that.
interesting because in Woodbridge, everyone did them like last week or 2 weeks ago.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's a little bit different.
Oh, it is a little bit.
So for
different.
those that
sounds
don't
early.
know, Italians, they'll buy bushels of tomatoes, and basically the family will get together and boil the tomatoes and put them through like the skinning machine and make sauce for the year and pass them on to all of their relatives. So it's something that I recently discovered. It's a pretty cool tradition.
It is a pretty cool tradition.
Okay,
And the
so-
best part is actually eating it afterwards and making
Yeah.
the fresh pasta with the fresh sauce. Nothing beats that.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll give you a 7 on your Italian scale if you're still doing your tomatoes.
Yes.
Good for you. Okay, so you left home at 14 years old, St. Catharines. You were in the jungle of St. Catharines.
I guess you could say I actually left St. Catharines and lived in Hamilton for a year.
Oh,
So I was, I guess you could say for a year, I was a Hamilton girl.
wow.
And then transitioned from Hamilton to Brampton. So I lived in Brampton, Mississauga for about 10 years. So that's where I think in business, kind of knowing that market. Yes, at that time I was an employee, but I kind of got to know the market, the streets, the areas,
That's
the
crazy.
Brampton, Mississauga area. Yes.
I grew up in Brampton.
Oh,
Yeah.
very good. Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
Whereabouts?
I grew up near Bramalea City Center.
Okay, see, I was Charlotte and McLaughlin area.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Close to Shoppers World.
Yeah, Shoppers World. That's
Yeah.
right.
Okay,
Yep.
that's interesting. All right, so tell me, what are, just since we kind of touched on this, what are the main differences, in your opinion, between St. Catharines and Hamilton?
Oh boy. First and foremost, I would have to say demographic. Just from, Hamilton, I've gotten, the pleasure to get to know on the investment perspective with, even just looking at properties, getting to know the market. I would say demographic in comparison, yes, we're both student communities. You have McMaster down there, and St. Catharines has Brock University and Niagara College, in Niagara Lake and Welland. So yes, we are both student based, but I say Hamilton has a very high economic development rate compared to St. Catharines, where we've started shifting. St. Catharines tends to have, we're more of a retirement community. We're also, I guess you could say low income as well. So you're getting a lot of family oriented people, retirees. In comparison in Hamilton, you're getting a mixture of the younger generation versus, people working class.
Mm-hmm.
So that would probably be the first difference. I would probably say that would be the biggest difference between the two in terms of demographic.
Yeah, St. Catharines is actually very kind of, it's sectioned off into different areas. And if you just like say the QEW north of there, it's totally different from certain spots south.
That's right.
So in your opinion, since you know the area very well, where would you think would be an ideal spot to invest in St. Catharines? Like, can you kind of break down the different areas and maybe explain the pros and cons of those areas of St. Catharines?
Sure. So if you're looking, if you want to look in comparison, like you were saying, north end to south, where the QE divides, what ultimately it depends on the strategy. So in terms of investment, if you are a flipper, or you're using the burst strategy or secondary suite conversions, your north end is ideal because ultimately this area is highly dense in residential, bungalow style homes. So
family friendly.
family
Yeah.
friendly. So this is where you're getting, yes. So
Mhm.
this is what the strategies you would use. And these would be the pros of the north end.
Mhm.
You do, not to say you do have some of the high rise and multifamilies, but those are kind of tucked off and hidden. Now, when you're going south of the QE, now you're getting into downtown and south end towards Brock University.
Mhm.
That's a totally different strategy. So now you're getting into students. So if you're a student rental investor, this is where you want to target. So the downtown, highly populated with students.
Mhm.
I also will say downtown is also targeting the lower demographic
Mhm.
rates as well. But what I love about the downtown, and this is kind of even our focus in terms of investments, is there's a huge transitioning happening since the General Hospital has been torn down. There's a lot of development shifts happening in this area. So I think that this will be a great anchor point to what happens in this specific area. Off Queenston, where the old hospital used to be, to see because that'll be an anchor to how things shift. The great thing is now when you're going to the business district area, of the downtown core away from the residential, this is now you're getting really, in terms of price point, now you're getting prime real estate area. You're getting multifamily mixed use. Once again, student rentals. So these are the great areas, much higher price point compared to if you were to go closer to the hospital area where it's the residential tends to be a lower income demographic. Now going further south towards Brock University, now you're getting into more student housing, Thorold, which Brock University is kind of in the Thorold area. So now you're getting into the different student rentals. So you could even get into flip opportunities in those areas as well.
Yeah. So to recap, if you're flipping, if you're doing the burst strategy, or even if you're maybe just doing a buy and hold and you want a high quality tenant, north of the QEW is probably ideal for that. If you're looking south of the QEW in the downtown core, you're probably either going to get students or you're going to get a lower class, kind of maybe like a C plus type of tenant, correct?
You could say that. Not to say, because of the shift in the business district area, the city and the private sector, investors coming in and really putting in their money, with the First Ontario Performing Arts Center, the Meridian Center. So there's a lot of money going into the city to really redevelop, and all these little cute, neat shops.
Yeah.
So that area, that's on the cusp of where the transition's happening. So between, being in the middle from where the hospital and the development that's happening and where the business district is, that area within the next 5 to 10 years is really going to shift and change. As long as people see the value and continue to invest in those areas, which is what our focus is, because we really do see the transition, especially to add that the GO train is coming. So this is also now the GO train is further south.
Yeah. Isn't it already? It's already operating, right?
It's already operating.
Yeah.
Yes, it's only the one bus a day.
One a day.
One a day. So.
And that leaves at what time?
I want to say
something like
8:30, between 8:30 and 9 o'clock.
Was it? I thought it was before then. I thought it was early so that people can get to Toronto. So
I could
basically,
be wrong.
the GO train is now there's one stop in St. Catharines, and it operates once a day, and it goes straight to Toronto, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
So that's a big thing
correct.
because the distance between Toronto and St. Catharines is the exact same, almost to the dot, as the distance between Toronto and Barrie. And look at Barrie. Like if you put it on the map, and that's not going straight over the water into St. Catharines. That's going all the way around on the QEW.
That's right.
Yeah, it's incredible to think at the average price in St. Catharines compared to Barrie.
What is the difference between the two? I know people that invest in Barrie, but I'm not really familiar with that.
I don't have like all the stats, but Barrie's almost double.
Ooh.
Like the average price there is significantly higher than St. Catharines.
Well,
Yeah.
I will tell you this: since the 2016 spike, I would say a lot of properties, I wouldn't say doubled, but they have significantly
Yeah.
increased. And I definitely foresee that happening once again. I see the trends happening very similar to what Hamilton
Yeah.
has reached, and I think every market goes through those cycles. St. Catharines, you're still able to find cash flowing properties. You're still able to, if you're banking for appreciation as well, this is a really, really great time to be, looking into the St. Catharines city.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I just remember I worked on a project maybe 2 years ago. It was a project in Niagara Falls. And this was a new condo development on a golf course. And it was like a luxury development. And just at that time, I was looking into the area and seeing all the things that were happening. I think one of the things that I read about was a major hospital being developed in the area, which I think is part of the reason why the hospital that you mentioned was being torn down.
Yes.
Yeah, and the other benefits of being in that area would be the proximity to New York, to Buffalo, for people that want to go out there for whatever reason, for flights. There's all sorts of like development happening in the area. I don't remember all the details, but I know that a lot of money is being poured into the Niagara region in general. So do you have any information on any of the economics of any aspects of the economics there?
Specifically St. Catharines or the region itself?
Either one.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised. It's really interesting, and getting to know the region itself, even though we specialize in terms of market, understanding the market in St. Catharines, we've had the opportunity to get to know the region as well. And the thing is, a lot of investors need to start connecting at the city level, because depending on what the need is and depending on what they're looking to attract, whether that they're looking for more businesses to attract, for economic development purposes, are they looking for more residences? So they're looking for people to invest on the residential aspect. Different cities have different grants. The city, the little town of Fort Erie, a lot of people haven't even heard of that area, but you'd be surprised of the perks at the city level they're willing to do. In terms of St. Catharines, I do say they're really looking for, as you can see, there's a lot of development happening in St. Catharines in terms of, affordable housing. That's a really big initiative, but they're looking for high density residential is what the city of St. Catharines is looking at. So what they bring of value to an investor or to a developer is is bypassing the waiting times in terms of getting the permits, things like that. So they're becoming much more lenient. And as far as I'm aware of, I even think now, as speaking to Mayor Walter Senzik, I do know that in terms of the secondary suite conversion, which tends to be a very popular strategy among at least a lot of our connections. I know that I believe come this fall, they're going to be bypassing that. Right now, there are restrictions with how large basement units can be, where they're actually going to be getting rid of that bylaw, so that because there is a shortage of affordable housing, they're making, adjustments to the bylaws to be able to accommodate the private sector and investors to be able to create these opportunities for affordable housing. So these are the types of things that investors could really take advantage of, in terms of, those kind of values at the city level.
Okay. Do you have any information on the hospital as well that's being built?
Well, the hospital has been built. So
Okay.
the hospital, as far as I'm aware, has probably been close to about 5-10 years. But that was a many-year project. That one's been up and running. It's just, it's only been the past, I believe, about 6 months that the old General Hospital in downtown St. Catharines on Queensway has been torn down. But that new hospital there has, been...
Where is the new one?
West St. Paul area. So basically, if you're taking West St. Paul, would be like 4th Avenue. So if you're going up, if you're in the downtown core, Welland turns into 4th Avenue. And if you kind of take it out to the country almost, you're almost in country land there from where the hospital is.
So maybe I misread at the time when I was doing the research, because I thought it was something that was, maybe there's a new hospital.
Maybe there's something smaller that I'm not quite
Either
aware
way,
of, but
doesn't matter, but that's good.
Yeah.
So the new hospital's up and running.
Yeah.
Do you have any, I know you're not like, you don't represent the city or anything
No.
like that, but you seem to be knowledgeable with this stuff. Do you know if there are any plans with the GO train to increase the number of trains or anything of that sort?
Yes, as far as I'm aware of, from just the research that is open to the public, I believe that they're going to be implementing the GO train's going to have its own track, because right now I believe they are sharing with Via Rail, and that's why they only have the one day. But within the next, they keep changing the dates. But within that, we'll say the next, 2 to 3 years, the GO train will have its own line where it'll be able to come and go and have multiple times that they're coming in and going out. So
great.
But I don't have the specifics on
right.
that.
Yeah, it's just a general idea.
Yeah.
Where do you see the most opportunity in St. Catharines?
That's a very good question. See, I'm a person that is open to all opportunities for ourselves. We're more of multifamily commercial. So that's kind of our, niche. So depending on what your strategy is, I see value in all areas. Because we are a vision-based type of company, and we want to contribute to the transformation in the downtown core. So I personally see value in the downtown in terms of investment, because when you're looking at the financial analysis aspect from the price point versus versus cash flow, and and then looking at growth, yes, I guess there's a high risk tolerance, because now you're dealing with a more vulnerable demographic. So, so it all depends on your comfort levels. For ourselves, I see value in the downtown, especially if you're looking at what is happening down there and where it's going. North End, once again, the North End, I see value in that area in terms of price point, and if you're doing those, the burrs or the secondary suite conversions, and then also the student rental areas. Personally, a keynote, in Thorold, it is licensed. So for any investors looking to convert any single family homes into student rentals, you might want to rethink that, because it is a very intensive licensing process and approval process. So whatever investment you put in, you may need to put more investment into that in order to get it licensed. So that's just a key thing for those.
Sorry, is that license, does it only apply to student rentals, or is it any rental property?
Anything below 4 units and below. Okay,
but I've heard that it's very simple to get the license for rental purposes. I guess that's not the case, or
so it depends on the property. So, for example, if you're getting a really good deal on a property that, in order for it to be a legal rental, it may need more income up. It may need more financial compensation up front to get it to safety code and to get it licensed properly. So for an investor that has well maintained and it has been already licensed, then it'll probably be very simple for you to get. Now, if you're acquiring this property and it hasn't been licensed and you want to convert it into a multifamily or convert it into a student rental, whatever your strategy is, you'll have to abide by what what it is that to get it licensed, you'll have to really focus on those requirements. So it all depends.
Do you know what happens if you don't have it licensed and you get caught?
Yeah, I don't know what the fine is, but I hear it's pretty hefty. Okay. I do hear it's pretty hefty, and I know that I foresee them implementing, the databases that they need to figure out where these rental properties are. Knowing that St. Catharines was considering it, Licensing St. Catharines, which is off the table now. I definitely foresee in how we're in close proximity to Thorold. I definitely see over the next few years that the city will probably end up implementing some form of system to systematize, okay, which are residential, which are which are rental units. So it may not affect you now, but in the future could negatively impact. So just do your due diligence and comply. That's what I say. Just comply to what the city wants, and if that's part of your investment, then you'll just have to rejig the numbers and make it work. That's what we do as investors, right? Just make it work.
We just throw in the towel and do whatever. Okay. So when we're talking about multi-units now, let's discuss a little bit of St. Catharines. What kind of pricing we're looking at per door, for example. If there's anything else you want to share about your multi-unit off-market strategies.
Oh, so price per unit?
Yep.
Oh boy, that's a good one, because you'd be surprised. St. Catharines is a very, very unique city. Price per unit there's even pockets that vary from one pocket to another. See, because we don't really focus on the north end, I'm getting more familiar now, getting into a bit more property management and kind of seeing what the numbers are like, in terms of those BRRRR strategies and understanding. So if you're looking at multifamily price per unit, you could be getting as low as, I used to be able to see, I'd say within the past year, we've had opportunities that were from 75,000 to 100, but right now you could go in some pockets from we'll say 100,000 per unit, versus some areas you could be paying 200. But it's funny, I was talking to one of our developers, and they just sold their duplex in kind of the north end. It's at the cusp of north end and downtown, but more so north end. And he sold his legal duplex. I'd say it was probably about 15 years old. Very nice property, but significantly below market rent. And he sold for $478, which I thought was outrageous. Yeah. But later, when I was speaking to him more, I see how he got that price point was he ended up getting vacant possession. So there was some strategies there that the seller protected himself, and was able to vacate. So in that sense, yes, it could somewhat justify, but I still can't believe, looking at, for that particular area, almost $250 a unit, I think is really out.
Well, it's a little bit different when it's a duplex or a 2-unit property versus a 20-unit building. Yes.
So the larger the property, the less the price per unit. So in a duplex, normally the duplexes I could see in the downtown north end kind of core, you could be looking at around 100 to 150. To me, is what the norm of what the market has been doing. So like I said, at 250 was really, it was good for the seller. So it's definitely it's interesting how the market has shifted and changed. But that's usually the norm. Not to say, it depends as well. We're looking right now at a student rental property that is in the Montebello Park area that we're working on right now, and it's a student rental, but it used to be an old mansion, and it has 11 rooms in it, and it's a legal duplex. So that one there, is asking for more than 800. Now, once again, that's Montebello Park area. So now you're getting into prime real estate area. Anywhere around that Ontario Street, Welland, Montebello Park, and even getting into the business district area, you're going to be paying a larger significant price point because of the area. So once again, on a legal duplex, over 800,000, that's what you're going to expect for that area. But for a house that's 4,500 square feet, and solid structure. So once again, you're getting different price points, and depending on what it is currently. But these are the different types of price points that you're going to see more so in the multifamily and boarding, lodging, like student rentals.
Okay. So we touched a bit on the larger multi-units. Are there a lot of multi-unit buildings, let's say like 15 plus unit apartment buildings in St. Catharines?
There is quite a bit. Without me knowing the exact numbers, I would have to say yes. There is a fair amount of your larger, high density multifamilies in the area. Of course, a lot of them are owned by a lot of the larger companies. And, and once in a while, I haven't seen any go on the market. I had a colleague that was looking at a larger one in St. Catharines, but we didn't have the opportunity to take a look at that. But we've seen larger multis, go like in Niagara Falls area and other areas, sometimes go on the market, but usually the larger ones you rarely see on the market. So
so these are off-market opportunities.
These are definitely off-market.
And you are specializing in finding these types of opportunities. So can you kind of tell us a little bit? I know you probably don't want to give away all your secrets, but can you tell us a bit about how you're finding these off-market, high-density apartment buildings?
Sure. Well, it's not so much finding. I like to look at it as creating. We create the opportunities, and that's what we have built our brand around, is creating those opportunities through relationship integrity, authentic relationships. I guess you could say I've been kind of labeled as a networker. I consider myself more of a connector. I like to, if people come to us, and we're at the point now where we started out hitting the streets, doing the door knocking and things like that, doing those, the flyers. But we're at the point now where we have built such an incredible resource team and a team of connectors from, the investment side as well as the trade side as a service provider. So with all the connections that we have, created, a lot of the opportunities more or less come to us. And I would say a good chunk of them are also, really great realtors. Some realtors like working with MLS. They see the value in there, but a lot of the realtors we work with see more value working off market. So we've built over the past few years that we've been in business with realtors that see more value in that, connecting with, service providers like us that have the pool of connections and are continuously building our network resources of investors and working with them creatively on a win-win-win manner. So the best advice and the key thing is building those relationships. And yes, it takes a very long time. So it's building that relationship, keeping in contact, kind of like you, George. I receive, your really nice cards in the mail, and that always, and when I'm receiving those, that is a key thing to building those relationships. And, we were working on that few opportunities, in Hamilton and in Welland. And these are the things is I keep telling more so our investors, I'm not going to be chasing you. Build the relationship with us, keep in contact with us. And, when opportunities present themselves, who's the first person we're going to connect with? Are the people that built those relationships with us. And we put that time and effort in creating those. So that ultimately would be the biggest way we have created these off-market opportunities. And we're at the point now where some of our elite investors are coming to us wanting to offload their properties off market. And we create that, and we create those strategies, in a different way, in different ways, whether we bring in our realtors or we, if it's in the St. Catharines area, chances are we're going to be looking at that ourselves. But what we like to do is, once again, it goes back to the service aspect. So even if it's something that we're looking to acquire ourselves, we still open that up to our investors and give options. Now they have the option to work with us passively and, as a joint venture partnership, and it's completely passive and we take on the operations. Or we give the option if they want to, for us to assign that. And if they want to take over that property, then they could take over, and we charge a very small consulting fee on that. So we like to give options to our investors, and that has allowed us to now, they come to us and see the value in offloading their opportunities to us as well, which has been a blessing to us. So for those of you listening, thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Yeah, I think networking and relationships,
Yes.
I just keep hearing it over and over and over again. That's how most successful people are building their business.
Mhm.
And I will throw something out there. If you come across a good opportunity, single family home in Hamilton that needs some work, I'm looking. So
Okay.
yeah, keep
I
me
will
in mind.
yes, I will keep that in mind.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so that's that. So we figured out how you're able to find these off-market opportunities. Just out of curiosity, how many relationships do you have? Like, how many people are in your database?
Without me disclosing that kind of information,
Okay, you don't have to.
I guess you could say, okay, so we have two different groups. So this is for those that are listening. We have our Opportunity Knox community, which you are definitely a part of. That is our bigger community. Eventually, we'd like to build this. Yes, it is our second touch of what opportunities we have within the company. So they get basically what's left over from that first group. So
I'm part of the second group that gets the leftovers.
Hey, you know what? Hey, you could definitely, you could definitely be part of our lead investor group as well.
Okay.
That one will definitely become more of an education platform as well, and there'll be a huge value to those that aren't part. But I'm slowly starting to transition some of those Opportunity Knox, community partners into our elite. So our elite investor group, the perks in those is that these are people that spend the time and energy with us. We send out an initial investor survey that they fill out with basic information on where they're currently at and where they want to go. Then we basically set up a 30-minute call to go more in depth in long-term, short-term goals, vision, strategies you're open to but may or may not have experience in, and capital and things like that. So we get a very clear picture. And the great thing is that when we qualify opportunities based off of our needs and that group's needs. So we work really closely with that group, and it's very simple. I could definitely provide you the link of that survey and get you part of that group, because sometimes opportunities don't get filtered down to the Opportunity Knox, and that group get kind of first right of refusal to any opportunities that come through.
Great.
Yeah.
I'd love to be part of that group.
Great.
All right. Sounds good. Okay. Why don't we jump into the next section? Unless there's anything else, is there anything you want to share? Any last message before we get into the next section?
No, I think I've shared quite a bit.
Yes, you did. Maybe a little more than you wanted
Yeah.
to. Okay.
Good.
So the next part is the random 5, where I'm going to ask you 5 random questions, and you're just going to tell me the first thing that comes to mind.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
Yes.
What was your favorite 90s TV show?
Oh, maybe a 90s TV show. Oh, boy. I'm going to have to think about that one. Oh, I want to say Full House. But, it's funny because I have actually restarted watching that on Netflix with my kids.
Yeah.
They're watching the Full House series, but that's the one that popped in my head.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
a good
Let's
one.
go with it.
How is that, by the way? Because I was thinking about that the other day. Like with my kids, I don't know if they're going to be interested in watching any of the shows that I used to watch.
Yeah.
So how is it? How do your kids like Full House?
You know what? My oldest, Erica, she is 11 years old. Well, I have to say, Victoria, she's into it, but not as much. She's into the Full House, but she also likes the Fuller House. So that's kind of the, the sequel to, Full House. So, so that she kind of goes back and forth between the Full House but the little one, she's only 9, Victoria. So she's not as into it as much as her sister.
I was just thinking, like, it must be so different because the way they dress, their hairstyles, just the things that they discuss. Sometimes they'll make references to things that were happening at that time, which are no longer, people don't really know about. So, okay, cool. Well, the second question is kind of tied to the first one, which is, who was your favorite character on Friends? I'm assuming you watched Friends because everyone did.
Friends is another good one. Oh.
Yeah. Don't worry about it.
Friends. Okay, everybody loves Joey. I love Joey.
Because he's Italian?
You know what? No, he's just funny.
Okay.
He's just funny and quirky.
Yeah.
You know what? Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
But I
Joey
like
and
them all.
Rachel.
I didn't really have Rachel. I really like them all. I never really played favorites. At different times, I like them in different characters. But Rachel, Joey, Monica. I kind of could relate more to Monica in terms of analyst when it comes to the cleaning. I think that's an Italian trait as well. I'm a little bit fanatic, and it's funny how I brought that a little bit into our investments as well. Is when I go into a property that isn't very well maintained, and I'm like, God, how do people live in here and without it even on the investment and not maintaining their properties? That's definitely something that is very important to me as well.
Right. Well, that's a good thing. Keeping it clean helps with in so many different ways. Okay, what was a turning point in your mindset? Not a very clear question, but you can make what you want with that.
I'd have to say the turning point in my mindset was when I transitioned, when I went through the transition from quitting my day job, working for the District School Board of Niagara and the Niagara Catholic. I was working long-term contracts with the DSBN, and I was kind of filling the spots in between my contracts through the Niagara Catholic on an administrative capacity. When I transitioned, believe it or not, my transition before getting into full entrepreneurship was actually network marketing and was the personal development there. I would have to say that first year was a huge transformation in my mind shift in terms of developing my own mindset, releasing from the traumas that I went through as a child and as a teenager that I wasn't even consciously aware of, and just spending time on getting to know myself and my needs, my wants, and just healing myself from the past, which that was probably the pinpoint. And then getting into the trainer, a board designated trainer after all my courses, that was another shift and change in terms of mindset to be on the flip side now, to be able to guide others to their own transformation and their own releases from adversity that a lot of people aren't even consciously aware of, and they're just going through life, either spinning and going through the same occurrences in life and events. So those were probably the two biggest, and those were probably from 2015-16 and 2017 and 18. So that was probably the biggest, transformational time for me in terms of mindset. Right.
Interesting. And that was the time that you said that you committed all of your saving towards personal development.
Yes, 100%. That was the hardest part. Going from an employee mindset and, being able to account for every single penny and knowing where it was going and when it was coming in, to having to say, okay, and investing on a belief, not that I've replaced my income, but just on the development that I've built within myself and the belief that I could do it, was probably, and not receiving that paycheck. that you need to have a certain mindset to be able to.
Yeah, I like the saying, you're in a place now where you eat what you kill.
I love that.
Okay, the last question is, what success principle do you live by?
Oh, success principle. Oh, that is a good one. I would say the one common thing that I say continuously, I mean, in terms into investors and even at a social platform like this, is invest in yourself first, because there's no greater investment than that. That would probably be, and I'm base that off of my own personal learnings. You could go and invest in, your next up level your portfolio. The thing is that, it may take you 10 years to get to that point, and you may be spinning your wheels. And like we say, it's not an easy task to be able to go and create those financial wealth opportunities, and it takes time. The thing is that if you want to get to that destination, quicker, enjoy the journey, invest in yourself. So not only would that, decrease your time in getting there, it will also give you some peace of mind because you have that belief within yourself. And I think that really takes time to develop that skill.
Got it. So your answer is invest and believe in yourself.
Invest in yourself.
Okay, perfect. So before we wrap up the episode, do you want to tell people what services you offer and how they can reach you?
Sure. So basically we could be reached. So the services we provide first, we have the simplest three ways we service.
The simplest three ways.
We're constantly evolving.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
Which I mentioned earlier, our new division that we've just implemented and looking to grow as well. So the first area is, if you're looking for off-market opportunities, yes, we specialize in St. Catharines. However, we have built an incredible team of affiliate partners that also have off-market opportunities in other markets, not just in the Niagara region. So if you're an up north kind of investor, if you're looking in the Chatham area, you're looking in different markets, GTA, London sometimes, Windsor sometimes, Kitchener. We have built those affiliates that, we work with in other markets in terms of multifamily commercial off market. So if you're a buyer, we could help you there. If you're looking to invest in the Niagara region, St. Catharines specifically, this is our market specialty. You want to be a passive investor, because the funny thing is I've learned with investors, people tend to think when you become a landlord, you're a passive investor. Actually, no, you're actually receiving, that's reoccurring income. That's not passive income. Passive income is when you're not putting your time energy into it, whereas if you're receiving money, but you're still managing the place, that's reoccurring income, which a lot of investors tend to not see that. So if you want to be a passive investor and let us, the professionals, take care of the opportunities and force appreciate and do whatever and maintain that and grow that asset, while you enjoy your life, this is another way that we could work with you. And the third way, which has come to us unexpectedly, we have now started implementing in, I wouldn't say property management, but in terms of if you have a vacant unit in the city of St. Catharines and you don't want to go through the hassles of screening tenants. We have a system in place that we have been working on, within our own units, and now, going out there and servicing other people that don't want to go through the screening process with, in terms of occupying their vacancies. We could help with there at a competitive price compared to other service providers in the St. Catharines area. So that's kind of our third way of, working.
And finally, best way to contact you?
Best way to contact me is, contact me by phone, email, info@elitepropertyinv.com. We also have our own Facebook page. We also have an Instagram page. I believe it's Elite Property INV, but I will tell you this, I'm not very active on Instagram. I'm more of a Facebook user. Yeah. And also through our website, which is elitepropertyinv.com.
Got it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, that's great. Thank you so much for your time. I hope that you guys have found this useful and her knowledge of St. Catharines was helpful in kind of breaking it down for you. So hopefully we'll have a chance to reconnect soon. It's always nice chatting with you.
Thank you very much for having me here.